You wake before sunrise because the cold reaches you before the light does. It pushes through the straw under your back, through the damp wool around your shoulders, through the thin walls that never truly keep the weather outside. The room smells of smoke, wet earth, sour breath, and old manure. Somewhere close by, a pig shifts in the dark. A hen scratches in the mud outside. Rain ticks against the roof, then rattles, then settles into a steady, merciless drumming that feels older than prayer. Your mouth tastes of stale grain and ash. Your stomach is already awake, already empty, already measuring the day by what it will not receive. The bread from yesterday was dark, heavy, and bitter with grit from the millstone. You swallowed it slowly, as if chewing longer could turn too little into enough. It did not. Your fingers are stiff. Your feet are numb. The doorway opens onto a yard that has become a trench of mud. Beyond it, the fields are no longer fields. They are pools of standing water, broken stalks, flattened grass, and seed drowning before it can become food. You listen for the sounds that once meant life was continuing as it should. Cartwheels, axes, voices, dogs barking. But hunger changes sound. Villages grow quieter when people no longer have the strength to complain. Even the animals are different now. Thinner, slower. Their ribs are visible under skin. Their eyes follow you like they are waiting for an answer you do not have. This is Europe in the years 1315 to 1317, and the world around you is not collapsing in fire or conquest. It is collapsing in rain, rot, and exhaustion. The system that feeds an entire continent is failing one soaked field at a time. Seed rots in the earth. Hay blackens in storage. Grain spoils in the barn. Prices rise faster than wages ever could. Bodies weaken before anyone is willing to admit what is happening. This world does not care if you survive. Music. You are not a noble. You are not a bishop. You are not a merchant with silver hidden in a chest or grain sealed in a dry cellar. You are one of the people who keep everyone else alive. You live in Northern Europe, in a village tied to soil, weather, and obligation. Most people around you are peasants, because most people in medieval Europe are peasants. They work the land, feed the towns, support the lords, and carry the kingdom on bodies that wear out long before anyone calls them old. Your place in this world is not something you chose. It was assigned at birth, handed down with the same certainty as mud walls, wooden bowls, and a name no chronicler will write down. If you are a serf, you are tied to a holding and to a lord. You do not leave because you are hungry. You do not move because another place might be better. You may need permission to marry, to change your work, to leave the village, even to use the mill that turns your grain into bread. Your labor is owed before your suffering is considered. The land is not yours. Much of what it produces is not yours either. You did not choose this life. It chose you. Above you is a structure that claims to protect you. The Lord offers order. The church offers meaning. The king offers distant authority. But each promise is conditional. When harvest fails, power does not starve first. You do. The same hands that demand rent, labor, and tithes in good years still demand them in bad ones. That is how the system survives for as long as it does. It bends the poor until they break. Your day begins in half-light and ends in darkness, but the work never really ends. In spring, you plow, sow, mend, and dig. In summer, you weed, cut, carry, and repair. In autumn, you reap what the weather has spared. In winter, you thresh, patch roofs, mend fences, haul wood, clean stalls, and pray that what remains of the stores will outlast the cold. There is no season of rest. There is only a change in the kind of strain placed on your body. The tools in your hands are simple because they have to be. A wooden plow tipped with iron if iron can be spared. A sickle, a flail, a spade. A cart with wheels that sink into wet roads. Nothing in your world multiplies labor except more human bodies and the strength of animals. If the ox weakens, you weaken with it. If the horse starves, the plow stands still. If the seed is eaten, the future is eaten with it. And the weather is not a backdrop. It is an enemy with perfect timing. Rain drowns seed in the furrow. Rain keeps hay from drying. Rain softens roads until carts stop moving and trade slows to a crawl. Rain turns the barn into a damp chamber where mold spreads faster than hope. What should be stored for winter goes bad before winter even arrives. What should have been fodder for animals becomes rot. What should have been grain becomes loss. Long after you are gone, your bones will still tell the truth. Archaeologists will pull skeletons from medieval graves and find worn joints, damaged spines, chronic strain, and bodies shaped by repetitive labor and poor nutrition. The back bends, the knees grind down, the hands deform. This is not heroic labor. It is survival labor. You do not work to rise. You work so your household does not disappear. And still, that is not enough. What you eat when there is food is narrow and repetitive. Bread if grain can be milled. Porridge if grain must be stretched. Pottage made from peas, beans, onions, cabbage, or whatever survives in the garden. Ale weak enough for daily drinking because water cannot always be trusted. On better days, there may be a little cheese, a few eggs, perhaps salted fish if you have access, perhaps a strip of bacon saved and cut so thin it feels ceremonial. Meat is not your normal life. Meat is memory, feast, or luck. Feast days exist, but that is part of the cruelty. They remind you that abundance belongs to another rhythm, another class, another table. Lords eat white bread, better cuts, more variety. You eat what fills space in the stomach. Even that is uncertain now. And hunger is not an event. It is a condition. It sits under every thought. It makes people quieter, then sharper, then desperate. It alters the pace of speech, the patience of parents, the decisions made over a cooking pot. One bad harvest tightens everything. Two bad harvests strip a family of reserves. 3 years of failure do something worse. They teach the body that starvation is not temporary. You cannot solve hunger by hunting the Lord's deer. Forest law and local privilege protect game that you may see, but cannot touch. Rabbits, fish, timber, grazing land, even fallen wood can belong to someone above you. In famine, the landscape itself becomes a map of forbidden survival. Then disease arrives because it always does. Hunger weakens you first, but sickness finishes what hunger begins. The water you drink is never simply water. It runs past dung, refuse, dead animals, and human waste. Wells can foul. Streams can poison without changing color. You have no knowledge of bacteria, no understanding of invisible contamination, only the hard lesson that some cups are followed by cramps, fever, and death. Dysentery tears through households. Diarrheal disease empties bodies already empty. Fevers come in waves. Typhoid-like illnesses, lung infections, intestinal sickness, skin infections, parasites, all of them move more easily through weakened people. In crowded spaces, contagion becomes ordinary. In warmer months, rot and filth intensify. In colder months, bodies fail quietly in the dark. Children die with terrifying regularity. In medieval England, roughly a fifth of the population may have died before the age of 10, and life expectancy at birth was brutally low. If you survive childhood, your chances improve, but that is small comfort in a world where so many do not. Mothers know not to celebrate too early. Fathers learn not to imagine too far ahead. A child may live through winter and then vanish in spring fever. A child may survive hunger and then die of flux. A child may simply stop growing and fade. Medical knowledge offers little beyond herbs, bloodletting, prayer, poultices, and hope. Some remedies soothe. Many do nothing. None can reverse famine. No one around you can explain why one village sickens faster than another, or why one child recovers while another is buried before sundown. You do not know germs. You know only patterns. Bad water, bad air, bad season, bad luck, God's anger, God's silence. And then there are the hidden killers inside the food itself. Grain is life, but in wet years grain can become poison. Rye infected by fungus hardens into dark, alien growths that are ground into flour with everything else. Bread becomes a carrier of something no one can see clearly, and no one can stop. The symptoms are terrifying. Burning in the limbs, cramping in the gut, vomiting, convulsions, tingling fingers that turn cold and numb. hands and feet darkening as blood no longer reaches them. Hallucinations, double vision, pain that feels supernatural because nothing in the loaf looked different enough to warn you. The rich face danger too, but not in the same way. Their tables carry excess, spoiled delicacies, disease from storage and crowding, the risks of privilege. Yours carries contamination by desperation. You do not eat bad bread because you are careless. You eat it because the other choice is no bread at all. And because suffering needs an explanation, people give it one. Punishment, sin, divine anger, a test, a warning. Medieval people do not misunderstand pain because they are foolish. They misunderstand it because they do not possess the knowledge to see what is killing them. So, everyday objects become moral symbols. Bread becomes judgment. Water becomes fate. Rain becomes a sermon that never ends. Religion does not merely comfort you. It organizes how suffering is understood. You are told that the world is ordered by God, that hardship may purify, that obedience has meaning even when relief does not come. Priests explain famine through sin, penance, and divine will. Processions move through mud. Bells ring. People fast when fasting is the last thing starving bodies need. Prayer fills spaces where policy fails. Belief also reinforces obedience. If suffering can be holy, resistance becomes dangerous. If authority is sanctioned by heaven, defiance is not just social rebellion but spiritual risk. The church does not invent hunger, but it gives hunger language, and language can hold people in place almost as firmly as law. Law itself is not blind. It is public, physical, and unequal. Punishment happens where others can see it. Stocks, whipping, mutilation, hanging. Shame is part of the sentence. So is spectacle. Justice in this world does not need to be fair to be effective. It only needs to be feared. The logic of older ordeals still lingers in memory and custom. Guilt revealed by God, innocence proven through suffering. Even where formal trial by ordeal has receded, the habit of divine judgment remains. Evidence matters less than status, oaths, reputation, and power. A hungry peasant who steals bread meets one kind of justice. A powerful man meets another. Sanctuary might protect some. Clerical privilege might spare others. But you are not built into the system as someone worth preserving. You are built into it as someone whose obedience must outlast your strength. And while famine devours from within, war waits outside. War in medieval Europe is not rare interruption. It is recurring pressure. Kings and lords feud. Borders shift. Armies move through fields they did not sow. If you live in England or near the northern frontiers, the years around the famine are already marked by conflict with Scotland. Raids burn what hunger had not yet taken. Men are called to serve, haul supplies, guard roads, join levies, or leave their homes to support violence they did not choose. When men leave, crops do not stop needing work. Wives, children, old parents, and neighbors carry the load until they cannot. A field missed at the right moment becomes a field lost. A village visited by soldiers may not need to be destroyed completely to be ruined. Horses trample. Grain is seized. Barns are emptied. Tools disappear. Fear settles in and stays there. Sometimes war does not need to conquer your village. Sometimes it only needs to pass through once. And for women, the burden is heavier still because much of it remains uncounted. If you are a woman in this world, your labor begins before dawn and continues after everyone else has eaten. You carry water, knead bread, tend the fire, mend clothes, wash bodies, brew ale, care for children, feed animals, gather fuel, help in the fields, and patch together the household economy from almost nothing. The work inside the home is called ordinary because men write history around what they can more easily see. Your identity is constrained by men and by custom. A daughter belongs first to a father's household, then to a husband's. Marriage is not primarily romance. It is arrangement, necessity, property, labor, alliance, survival. In peasant life, it may be less ceremonial than noble marriage, but it is no less economic. A woman's body is expected to produce labor, service, and children. Her rights narrow through dependence. Her work expands through expectation, and childbirth hangs over everything. Even when it does not end in death, it can end in blood loss, infection, tearing, long weakness, or another mouth in a house that cannot feed the ones it already has. In a starving world, pregnancy becomes more dangerous. Milk fails. Infants weaken. Mothers return to labor too soon because hunger does not pause for recovery. There is no sterile room, no surgeon waiting, no reliable remedy if labor goes wrong. There is prayer, midwives, experience, luck, and the knowledge that many women enter childbirth with a will prepared in their hearts even if they never write one on parchment. There are also gendered dangers that famine sharpens: abandonment, coercion, widowhood without protection, blame for failed households, suspicion of sexual disorder, accusations that fall more easily on women when communities become frightened and cruel. Their suffering is often hidden because it happens in huts, in corners, in birthing rooms, in kitchens, in silence. For them, as for you, survival is rarely triumph. It is endurance until it ends. And yet the strange thing is that this world does not fully collapse. It should. By reason alone, it should come apart. Too much rain, too little food, too much disease, too much extraction, too much fear. A system with no reserves should die when its harvest dies. But it does not. Not completely. It endures because people reduce their expectations to the smallest possible unit of hope. One more loaf, one surviving child, one animal making it through winter, one patch of seed saved and not eaten, one spring that is less wet than the last, one neighbor who still shares news, one family that lasts until harvest. Hope here is not progress. Hope is postponement. That is the truth romantic versions of medieval life try to hide. Survival was not beautiful. It was not noble in the way paintings and castles suggest. It was adaptive. People sold tools that guaranteed future poverty because they needed to eat today. They slaughtered breeding animals and destroyed tomorrow to reach next week. They abandoned rules, then taboos, then parts of themselves. They learned how much a human being can lose and still wake the next morning. And still they woke. They planted again when there was seed. They repaired roofs that leaked before and would leak again. They buried children and kept feeding the living. They counted sacks, watched skies, listened for church bells, and measured winter in scraps. Ordinary people, not heroes, not kings, not saints. Just people making one more choice to remain alive in a world that kept proving how little their lives were valued. They survived because they adapted to cruelty.